Alrighty, hello everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Maddie Lynn, and you're listening to what I'm calling the IC podcast. And in this platform, I'm using my voice and technology to bring to you ideas of cosmic perspective, universal truths, science, real science, and some of the objective essentials that we need to discuss to then have a better life, live holistically and within alignment of our best selves. All of that was many words, but today, without getting into everything, we're going to talk about everything because we're looking at the astrological transits of our current position. I've got a calendar here, I've got my books and some notes that I wrote down for many purposes, but to talk about it today here. So without further ado, let's talk about a little bit about astrology, shall we? So if you do not believe in astrology or understand astrology, have concerns about what it means, or simple questions, hopefully I answer most of them. And if I do not, by the end of this video, please reach out. I love questions. They help me articulate more ideas, get to the specifications of everything, because everything interjects and intersects, and basically all means everything and everything means all. But if you look at a certain point, it keeps going. There's a roundabout kind of way where you can dig yourself into so many tunnels. So we're going to try and keep things a little bit separate for our brains and bring them together again, maybe separate them again and bring them together again, because that's how this stuff works. So let's talk about some ideas, shall we? Astrology, it bridges the energies that we can say govern or guide or influence the earthly realm, the realm in which we have experience of. And so our experience can be defined in many ways. And so the language of astrology really gives us the understanding of our progression, where we've come from, where we're going, and everything in between, really. Our now moments can be confusing. We can be lost inside of emotions and what we can perceive as random and unordered, meaningless happenstance. And I'm here to tell you that none of that's true. Most things can be understood as exactly what it's supposed to be. Sometimes we just misunderstanding, or we're not quite able to grasp all of the details just yet, and in the future, ourselves then will, because of the process of discovery. So let's look into some of this stuff, shall we? You may know already that we're in the Scorpio season. What does that mean? I'm going to try and break it down because this is one of my first videos and I'm going to spend the time to do so. So the season of Scorpio, when somebody says that, that means the sun is in the sign of Scorpio. And I don't know why I did this when I said sun. Scorpio. The sun is in Scorpio, and the sun stays in its sign for 30 days. And so each day it moves 1 degree, and we can divide that by 3. So within 30 days, there is decadence of 10. So the three points we can divide a sun sign into are spectrum of the sign. So Scorpio season, starting on the 22nd of this lovely month, is a point in which just came from Libra. So there's an influence, a hue. It transitions into Scorpio. The sun, transitions to its sign. What does that mean? How can a sun be in a sign? Well, my friends, science like that is beyond my vocabulary, but it does do these things. And so astrology comes from way beyond all of our time and is gifted to us with the perspectives and the story for then us to understand what it means. So the sun represents our conscious being, how we choose to be, how we almost perceive ourselves, as well as feel our actions meet our energies. So our conscious understanding of ourselves, this can be our ego or our outward expression in some sort of sense of the word. So with the season of Scorpio, there's a transition from Libra, this airy, kind, balanced person. We say person because we're talking about people. And then we got into Scorpio, beautifully transitioned into this darker quality. And so Libra is the bridge. Libra is the middle point, the balance point of all of the zodiacs, where we can numerically quantify them as 12 in total. So the 12 zodiacs, Libra's right on the middle point, just where we want to be. And so at that point, the perspectives that a middle grounded person being brings to the table allows other people, other beings to be seen. They're a beautiful mirror. They resemble marriage and partnership. So Libras can be called a blank slate for somebody else to bounce and project off of. As well, they're the most understanding of perspectives and ideas because of their relationship qualities. So moving from that into Scorpio, the bridge and the transition from the middle point, the balance point, really speaks to where Libras and Scorpios meet. I'm trying to break it down really, really clearly for you because the difference is so, I want to say beautiful and smooth, because I'm right on the cusp. I'm October 20th, and so I'm right on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. So if you can imagine, this is kind of my season. And when I say my, I don't mean me, I own it. This is what's going on for me. It means that I am amplified in this moment to harness myself and enjoy the feeling of being within the season I was born in, right? So I carried this energy forward, right? Carrying on. The Scorpio season brings with us the idea of darkness. So Scorpio represents death, rebirth, and transformation. And if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we are entering into darker and darker times where there's less sun, less daylight, and more dark time, and that gets all the way up until the winter solstice. So at this point, we can recognize that a lot of energies are showing themselves, and so here we have our celebrations of Halloween, and even further, we retreat more indoors, we go into our darker energies, which are just more quiet, calm, reserved, not necessarily withdrawn, but almost as though you're hibernating. Not really, because what do we do on our own time? What do we do when we're behind the scenes, right? We transform, we go back into what is ours, and from there we can move forward in a way that brings us to a better understanding or better expressed self. So if you're a Scorpio or have major Scorpio placements, the desire to be seen is not very strong. Scorpios like to hide or, be within the shadow. And so there's this power that comes from owning one's darkness. Humans tend to struggle in the notion of, being honest about the fact that they're not just a harmless, I'm trying to think of a word there, a harmless being. How we can understand the nature is to know that we have a spectrum. We can hold within us darkness and light, and there's reasons to respond in different ways, right? So there's no judgment for Scorpios. They're not evil, as some people perceive the sign to be. They're naturally within our environment. I say they as those Scorpios are the only people who have Scorpio energy. Every single human has every single zodiac sign within them. And I'm going to have a whole podcast episode of what that means, because head to toe we have all 12. And they reside within our bodies and within our lives. So in the Scorpio category, they rule our, like I said, death, rebirth, and transformation. So sometimes we can look into the world and go, where is Scorpio? It's within our sex, within our genitals. It's within like the occult and hidden groups. Not necessarily saying again it's evil, doing evilness. What I'm saying when I say occult is just the idea of groups communicating with spirit. Scorpios are understanding of the in-between, behind the scenes, under the surface energies. They are a water sign, meaning they rule or are strongly connected to and are amplified inside of emotions and intensity inside of that. Scorpios specifically are quite intense and potent. So when we think magic or mysticism, they're the ones, or we have the ability to see within ourselves where our mysticism lies, where our ability to listen to the in-between messages of our universe. You know how universe does somehow communicate to us at one level or another, and at one point we pick up on these messages. So some people are more sensitive to these energies than others. And so we can take a look into our own natal charts and find out where our energies are, to then find out our superpowers. What are we really good at? What are we bringing to the table for other people who have skills in other worlds? So Scorpio, they get a little bit of slack for saying like they're very, very dark and very, very negative. But what happens in the Scorpion world is they are sensitive to a lot of the darkness that is happening around us. And so if one identifies with that darkness, there is an assumptive role they play, when in actuality that darkness is for them to transmute. Again, what Scorpios are about transformation. So inside of the experience of darkness, which we all go through, there is the ability for the human to be a conduit for the light, to bring it into the place where it most needs it. And so anybody can do this, and Scorpios have a heightened sense of what darkness needs attention. And so we do need help inside of these spaces. It's not necessarily easy and takes a lot of strength. And what I can say in this moment is Scorpios, no matter what kind of placement you have, if it's your sun sign or if it's your moon, your Mercury, or even your rising, and even more distant, Scorpios usually have quite a bit of struggle and strife when coming through their lives to be themselves. They are actually put in a position to experience what it takes to come from a hard time. They are meant to go through something so challenging that they're needing to transform. And so only when we're put in positions of difficulty and intensity and a lot of overwhelming emotions will we choose differently, especially if we have reasons to stick to what we know, which can be a varying, spectrum of reasons and energies to speak to that. But when it's enough, when there's a strong enough push from the universe saying this is all this darkness around you, at one point the person inside of the experience understands that it's meant to strengthen them. And that's a huge, huge theme in most humans' lives. We have this place that we meet that we're like, no way, Jose. No, thank you. I'm not staying here. Oh my God, I gotta get out. You can't just wallow in the depths of darkness. And a Scorpio knows that. They will come up when it's necessary, and they'll strike, and they will conquer, really. They're about taking what's theirs rightfully, not disrespectfully. So that's a lot of my words. I have some ideas as well to read out to you from one book, which I'm grabbing right now. So the planet that rules Scorpio is Pluto. And I say it out loud and people are probably thinking, I thought Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. Well, it's a celestial body and we call it a planet in the astrological world, and that's all there is to it. And so what I'm going to do here is just read a little bit about what Pluto is, its energies, and we can have more understanding about Scorpio from that. I'll just add right here for myself that Scorpio is also partly governed by Mars. And so there's a lot to say about what Mars is and how Scorpio and Mars, we gotta get into it. So let me get here for you guys. Pluto is a planet of awesome power, but it is a power that we still find largely inexplicable and difficult to understand. Pluto was discovered as recently as 1930, and astrologers continue to study this planet's influence in astrology. What is certain is that wherever Pluto appears in your horoscope, that area of life will show a marked change, perhaps transformation. If you have ever experienced one of these blinding moments in which you suddenly see your life in an entirely new light and decide to change everything, you have felt the energy of Pluto. Pluto's actions brings to light things hidden in the depths of your subconscious, releases your dormant forces, and causes your suppressed energies to erupt suddenly. The idea I'll bring out here is that sometimes Scorpios can overwhelm others. Often the energies are overwhelming, and it takes the tolerance I guess I should say it differently. At a certain point, our tolerance can no longer handle that, and there's a shift naturally. Pluto is named after the Roman god of the underworld and the nether regions of Hades, and of the spirits of the dead. Originally called Planet X, Pluto was given its name by a young British girl whose letter suggesting a new name for the planet was the first to arrive at the Lowell observatory where Pluto was first discovered. Cute little story, carrying on. The planet is well named, for in astrology, Pluto signifies death and rebirth. It is a planet of regenerative forces, of destruction and annihilation, and then complete transformation. Its key word is elimination. Pluto wipes the slate clean. Pluto's immense power is felt in world events and in the great tides of history. It influences masses of humanity, enormous groups of people, and large organizations. Mass media and giant conglomerates are in its domain. Pluto rules over such disruptive elements in nature as earthquakes and volcanoes. Its negative influence is shown in mob violence, demonstrations, murder, wide-scale terrorism, and bombing. Pluto's power has been likened to that of nuclear fusion, which both destroys and creates. There are two sides to Pluto's influence, and like the two sides of a coin, they are opposite but part of the same. Pluto has a powerful generational influence and also a personal meaning in your chart. Because the planet is more distant, further away from the sun, it rules a much larger transit. So instead of 30 days like the sun takes to transit through one sign, Pluto takes years. And I really should know how many years. I believe it's like 30 years? Yeah, 31 years or something like that. I'll get there in just a sec. So the planet governs the beginnings and ends of phases in life. So we can talk about that in seasons, or we can talk about that in moments. Like, things die all the time. We technically have a type of death when we go to sleep as well. Our ego dies and we go back to source in some kind of sense, and we're reborn in the morning. So we can look at these cycles and see where the Pluto's influence resides, and that's just a natural part of life. And we shouldn't shy away from this darkness, because it shows us exactly where the light is and where to honor it and how to honor it. So if your life has taken a dramatic shift, if, for example, you have worked hard for a goal only to see it destroyed or ended and an entirely new direction opened up, Pluto is likely to be prominent in your horoscope. People who have had to leave their homes behind to begin anew in a foreign country, or those whose lives were irrevocably altered because of the death of a key figure, are under Pluto's influence. The Plutonian character has a deep need to dominate and control, and often will rise to great heights. People who have brilliant careers in politics and government, in medical research and archaeology are under Pluto's influence. The planet governs the uncovering of secrets of the past in order to clear ground for the future. Even in the most civilized personality, Pluto's force is felt as an undercurrent of turbulence and uncontrolled energy. Its strong negative power may cause some people to be cruel, sadistic, or treacherous, or even lead a life of crime. Pluto's power is seen in both idealistic leaders and brutal dictators. Pluto represents the highest and lowest of which humankind is capable. Some astrologers believe Pluto's power is too arcane and mysterious for human beings to analyze properly now, but that the planet will continue to govern impulses in our secret psyches that we do not yet fully understand. I really like that last bit here. So, taking a look into where Pluto is now really does, give us more insight, because it has a large-scale transit, and it goes through each sign in a generational time period. And so I believe I can say it out loud, most people who are listening to this, are probably born with Pluto in Sagittarius. I'm just going to say most people. You could have your Pluto in Scorpio, and that's even more fun. I could read that out really quick. So from 1984 to 1995, the entry of Pluto in the sign of Scorpio coincided with George Orwell's predictions of a totalitarian government and loss of individual rights in his famous book 1984. Pluto is extremely powerful in Scorpio, the sign that it rules, and this period was one of turmoil and revolution. During this era, the Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union disbanded and became a commonwealth. Iran turned militantly conservative. Yugoslavia was torn apart by warring Serbs and Croats. Scorpio is a sign of destruction, and Pluto's transit was rife with worldwide terrorism. Pluto's link to the underworld was seen in the rise of an international drug trade. The sign of Scorpio rules sexuality, birth, death, and rebirth, and Pluto's journey gave rise to test tube babies, surrogate parenting, cloned animals, and all manner of genetic engineering. The AIDS virus became rampant, underlining the themes of sex and death. Pluto's personal influence in Scorpio produces individuals with penetrating minds and strong wills. These people are imaginative and passionate, possess psychic ability, and can be ruthless about getting their own way. Very interesting. We're carrying on, because the next little period of time for Pluto was in Sagittarius from 1995 to 2008. I don't think it's 30 years anymore. I can't do quick math, apparently. Pluto zips through Sagittarius in a relatively short time. Oh, maybe that's why. 13 years, and its influence promises to be less heavy. Sagittarius is a sign of truth and open knowledge. And the years just prior to the turn of the millennium are characterized as the information age. Television reported events in full detail almost before they took place. The web links us to information within seconds. Endless streams of memoirs have left no one's secrets untold. In keeping with full disclosure, we witnessed a U.S. president's impeachment and acquittal that began with the exposure of his extramarital sexual affair. It's funny this book mentions that. It's just, more story for us to follow along here. Sagittarius also represents foreign lands and far-flung places. Through the computer and the internet, Pluto has transformed the concept of distance. International trade and business takes place in seconds. Retailers sell to the public directly through the computer, and email instantly connects people on opposite sides of the earth. We are hopeful, like Sagittarians, that the first decade of the 21st century is an era of new values in philosophy, religion, education, and foreign affairs, areas all under Sagittarius's influence. Sagittarius is the sign of freedom, adventure, and exploration. There should be a new spirit of friendliness and spiritual sharing among nations. Europe has already joined in a common market. Pluto in Sagittarius brings deep hope and profound understanding. Its negative influence is toward impractical extremes, but the optimism and enthusiasm that characterizes this transit should make this an uplifting time for human beings everywhere. Isn't that just so beautiful? So that was a little snippet of where Pluto was previous to where it is now, and that's something that I'm working towards, and the main point, right? What are we doing now? But where we've come from really does show us where we're going, because it's an order. Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. So Pluto now in Capricorn since 2008/9 to 2024. So we have a year and a half or so. So what is this to tell us? Let's read. So because Capricorn is a sign of discipline and ambition, Pluto's influence here should stress responsibility and ethic of work. Pluto is a sign of government and long-term security, and Pluto may have the effect of bringing new world order into being. Individual nations may join in a system of world government that leads to greater stability. Star watchers are focused on the year 2012, which the Mayan calendar marks as the end of the world, quote unquote. Many spiritual movements believe this is a metaphor for a change in consciousness. And there's lots to say about that, carrying on, when the human race will adopt a more spiritual value system. Astrologically, Pluto in Capricorn holds out the hope that there will be an end to war. By the time Pluto enters the following sign of Aquarius, the world will be in the age of Aquarius. Pluto will bring even greater emphasis to the humanitarian and freedom-loving qualities of Aquarius. This should be a time of unimaginable scientific discovery, for Aquarius is a sign of science and future knowledge. When Pluto is in Pisces, the next one, completing the cycle of 12, human beings may at last comprehend the fullness of Pluto's power and add to their knowledge of the meaning of life. Pisces represents the completion of the circle, the last step before moving on to the first rung of a higher ladder. By this time, the human race may have evolved to a higher and more noble plane. And I get goosebumps reading that. It's been a minute since I have. This whole idea of where we are now, I think, is at its peak. We have a few more years left in this transit, and there's lots to say, but the systems of government are part of that. The rules and regulations that bring us together, all of these ideas are actually being seen now. And if you're paying attention to news and media and the truth, it's all coming up now. And there's the need for change, and we need to let them die, let things go, and let systems collapse in order to be able to bring new ones into place. That's just the way it goes. You cannot put in place new things without putting away the old, right? I have analogies I could bring up, but I'm just going to start rambling. So the idea there is a strong one, and I'm going to keep going on it for just a little bit longer, because the transit that we're experiencing right now is beyond personal. It is universal, and at a certain point we have to become more aware so that we may grow, evolve, and not shrink down into our old ways. Speaking of that, we had Saturn in retrograde up until the 22nd, so just when Scorpio season started, Saturn went direct, and Saturn was in Aquarius and still is in Aquarius. And with the point with Saturn being there, what was I saying? So many thoughts. I'll come back to it. You know how these things go. So many things all at once. So I was getting to a point of Capricorn and government and, oh yeah, self-regulation. So Saturn, being the planet of rules, limitations, and regulations, it was retrograde, so there was this delay to our ability to choose and make conscious action and implement what we know and take responsibility and accountability. That was all kind of delayed and almost like it wasn't time just yet. And so now that it's been direct, especially with Scorpio season coming into full fruition here in congruence with Pluto, which rules Scorpio, being in Capricorn, that's where we're going. And if you didn't follow along, I'm going to do it one more time. So Scorpio season just began. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Together, they are amplifying, right? Together with the sun there and Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto and the sun right now are talking in a way where they're amplifying one another's energy. And so with the ideas, what Capricorn brings to Pluto, we can see it happening and unfolding now. And now with Saturn direct, we have this beautiful ability to recognize the needed limitations and boundaries to be able to self-regulate and govern yourself, because we can do that. It is possible. You don't have to leave it to the systems and the ideas of systems, because they're collapsing as we speak. So we need to release judgment of both self and others. There's no way for us to move forward if we are going to continuously go back into our thinking, oh, that was where it was. So yeah, there was a bit of regression with the retrograde as well. So maybe you had some recognition that you were entering into old ways and you couldn't quite understand why. Why were your old patterns being shown to you, and what did you have to learn from it? So letting go of the judgment of what you've had to do to get to where you are now, and the same for others, letting go of ridiculing the fact that somebody did something wrong or it wasn't right at one point and they were ignorant and caused all this problem stuff. We do not benefit from dwelling inside of these places, and it is necessary for us to shed away the thinking and the layers that come with that. There's behaviors and patterns and paradigms that are needing to come to a complete closure. And if you already are experiencing these things, congratulations for honoring and recognizing these energies, because it's just a matter of tuning into the world and the experience that you're having within it, in order for you to come to what's true. So the truth be told, the stars are saying it, and you're probably saying it too, right? So I'm just circling around Saturn right now, and I can get more into that one, but I'm gonna jump into a breakdown of where everything's at and talk a little bit about it, because it's all together. And so far we've already talked about the sun, and we've talked about Pluto. It's a bit backwards. And so we're also going to talk about Saturn a little bit more, but we're not going to start there. We're going to jump up into Mars, because Mars, it's a favorite. I mean, there's reasons for me to pick the order. Top down in the body sense, Mars is the planet that rules Aries, and Aries rules the self, and that governs the head. And so we can understand that how we take action really does come from our complete sense of self, from all the way up to the top, right? But we can also look top down, another conversation of direction. But that aside, let's talk about Mars. What does Mars govern, and where is it right now? Mars is in Gemini, and it's in retrograde. Isn't that just lovely? And it's in retrograde until the 30th. So the retrograde brings delay to taking action. So if you've been wanting to do things and wanting to initiate, because again, Mars, Aries, the initiators, how you would respond to a call, right? Imagine a warrior in the field of battle. They respond with pure fire, literally, to take action in a way that is serving a purpose, and hopefully self-serving as well, right? Whatever purpose you're serving, I hope that that's integrated and introspection is done, so that whatever it may be, does result in an outcome that benefits you and others. So Mars in Gemini, with retrograde being our lovely conversation here, the action that you would take within your day-to-day life that maybe is within circles of friends or people you communicate with, whether it's your coworkers or family members even, there's something to say about why you're waiting. And that's not for me to say here. That's very specific to your individual experience. But what the point is with the stars talking about it is that you're waiting for something. And it might be more information, it might be some processing that has to happen in your emotional world, or maybe just whatever reason you want to come up with. I can't come up with another one. Doubt. I think that's what was coming to my mind. Doubt in yourself. There's something that's going to come for you and help you further understand. Not only on the 30th will Mars go direct, the moon will be in Capricorn. So whatever you've been working towards, whatever you've been putting energy into and effort into, it will result in fruition. No matter what, the smallest amount of effort, the smallest baby steps towards your goals and visions and dreams, they do add up. And Capricorn is that beautiful sign of showing us that our dedication to whatever it is does pay off in the end if we put in all of our effort, right? So carrying on with Mars in Gemini, there's a specific conversation there because Gemini rules communication, communication with yourself, communication with others, how we share messages, and why we share them in the first place. You know, we can come up with every single reason in the whole wide world to describe our actions, but our words really do speak for what we believe. And so I think that in this time, I think, therefore I am, Gemini does say that. And so with a retrograde in this time, we get the beautiful pause before running off, like Mars likes to do, running off in a direction that may not be as focused, clear, or pointed as it could be. And in my life, this is relevant. I hope it's relevant for you, and you can find out why you're hanging out where you are for the time being, because there's no need to hurry. Wherever you do decide to move forward, you gotta talk about it first. You gotta understand it first, and hopefully have that thing relate to other people, because at the end of the day, we are here for people. People are people, right? People need people, and everything that we do does at some point involve and intersect with another person in their lives. As intricate beings we do play a role together as individuals. And so there's so much to say there. I love saying that. There's so much to say all of the time. I pulled out my book again to talk about Mars because there's so much energy here. And with the retrograde, we have a little bit of time to break it down, right? So Mars is the planet of physical energy. It governs your sex drive. Though we just talked about that being a Pluto thing, Scorpio, like I had mentioned, is slightly ruled by Mars as well. There's a partial influence from Mars that governs the zodiac sign of Scorpio. And so how we take action, there's many levels. And like I said, all the way up to the head, the experience of the human is a complete sense. And so we can include Scorpio as the end of the cycle and Mars as the beginning somehow inside of that, right? Scorpio is not the end, but it does represent death, like I said, so an end of sorts. Just like how pleasure ends at one point, so does the turmoil, so does the suffering, and so does all of the negative things once we transform, once we take action. So you can kind of see how those two things are together and connected. So your forcefulness carrying on, your forcefulness and your aggression is also ruled by Mars. This planet Mars is what spurs you into action. It's an interesting word, spurs. So, question from the book: are your sexual relationships ardent, tempestuous, and quarrelsome? Do you lose your temper quickly, or do you simmer for a while and then explode? In a conflict, do you display cold contempt or heated anger? Is your willpower strong or weak? Does competition bring out your fighting spirit? Question mark. To learn more about your assertive power, you must study the position of Mars in your birth chart. From the early times, Mars has excited and stirred the imagination. Because of its red color, Mars has always been known as a fiery planet. It is named after the Roman god of war, Mars, whose name means bright and burning one. Mars was a warrior who exulted in battle and strife. Aggressive and quarrelsome, he never hesitated before leaping into the fray. In astrology, Mars governs energy, boldness, the will to win, the ability to turn ideas into action. It is the planet of passion and sexuality and force. We are sexual beings, right? So we can understand how our action is within this realm. It signifies ambition and desire, courage and strength. A large part of the planet's domain are your sex impulses, for Mars governs the sex organs. You know, there's many things. I said it also governs the head, and I believe it did say that in the book at one point. In this book, I mean. There are many resources out there, friends. Mars' position in your chart indicates what stirs your passions and whether you can get your own way. It tells what kind of physical endurance you possess and how accident-prone you are. So this is in regarding to a person. When you look at Mars on an environmental level, you can see where we take action in the world. So there's war, and there's, like, I'm trying to think of, like, other action that we take as humans. There's many things I can get into. Let's keep reading, shall we? Mars' influence also brings strife and conflict, tension and anger, accidents and destruction. It rules heat, fire, earthquakes, violence, and war. The negative side of Mars' power can cause sudden injury or illness. When Mars is prominent in your chart, you have a go-getting personality with enormous energy and a rugged constitution. You tend to be enterprising, quick, and active. Oh my gosh, there was a breakup of the word. And active. And you hate to be ordered around. Depending on how you use Mars' force, you may be argumentative, quarrelsome, and reckless, and encounter a great deal of discord in your sex relationships. You may be a strong leader, adventurous, and pioneering, but may also be quick-tempered, brash, impulsive, and impatient. In its highest form, Mars represents your unleashed energy, your human will. It is up to you to use this force constructively. Very, very important. So this is a Mars look, and you can see how this is very much a conversation about Aries and what Aries is and how Aries zodiac signs are. And so where your Mars is, or if you have strong Mars placements, this can be why you have these energies at such an intense level. And so to talk about Mars on the body level, it is resided in the head because of its governing of Aries, of the self. So how the self responds to everything else. And so with Gemini, Mars in Gemini, and again, it's in retrograde, don't forget, so we have this delay. When Mars is in Gemini, there's a favoring of energetic activity of the mind. It's about a person in this perspective. It talks about a person with Mars and Gemini. So here we are. You have the experience of Mars and Gemini. So you are brilliantly intellectual with a steel trap brain that quickly grasps concepts and spins new ideas. You are incisive and practical and arrive at conclusions in a flash. The problem is that you lack force of will. You hesitate, vacillate. I'm trying to think of how to say that word. It's like oscillate, but vacillate. I don't even know what that means. And think of yet another delay. In matters of sex, you experience desire in the mind before it becomes a reality. You enjoy the adventure leading up to lovemaking and have passions that are easily aroused. However, as soon as an affair loses zest and becomes ordinary, you look for the escape hatch. You tend to have a number of affairs and marriages. Mars Geminis are able to inspire and to lead others through the power of spoken and written word. Often you have a magnetic voice and a compelling talent to convince others of what you say. So it was bridging the ideas of what Mars is and Gemini is, and together there's amplifications of one another, and there's also some attributes, energies that attribute to difficulty in being and taking action. And so understanding where that is inside of our current transit, with Mars being in retrograde, you can kind of, I say it so indecisively, but you can kind of see how there is this delay in where your mind may be taking you. And so let this time show you what that is, because there's reasons for you to be experiencing the thoughts that you are. And in some circles, we can be frustrated or annoyed or, just uncertain. However, there is reassurance coming from the astrological look that this is exactly where you're supposed to be, and there's no rush to carry yourself forward in any sort of direction, because there is something about communicating what's on your mind, taking action in that way, and not necessarily like rushing off to tell people what's going on. Just calmly within the environment that you're in, allowing yourself the space and time to get your thoughts out. It truly is an honor and a privilege to share your experience and have the time to do so in this day and age. So if you have a friend or somebody, a nice stranger, that'll listen to you in your moment, find how you feel about that, and maybe allow the conversation its time so that you can catalyze yourself forward, because that's what conversation does. All right. Carrying on, we're getting into all the stuff. So we talked about a few things now, and we're going to carry on and talk about Mercury in Libra. So you may have caught my earlier TikTok message about the transits, just few of them. I talked about Mercury. And so with that, I'll break it down a little bit further. Mercury rules Gemini. See how everything goes full circle. So Mercury rules Gemini, the planet of communication. Mercury also influences Virgo, but we won't get into there just yet. So with Mercury being the planet of communication, and our communication is somehow on hold, or I'd say on the spotlight or the hot seat. That's a really good way to look at it. There's also this beautiful balance coming into play that Mercury is in Libra, and let's see how long it's in there for. Mercury, no, I don't even know how long it's in there for. I don't believe. It just entered October 10th from Scorpio to Libra. So our communication, though it's experiencing this hot seat, like I was mentioning, there's also this beautiful ability to find balance, saying just enough. So saying what needs to be said, but in a way where you're getting your point across. You're not overstating or overbearing or overwhelming people, overdoing the communication. You're finding that sweet spot of saying what you need to and getting the emotions out, the ideas and concepts across, so that people understand you and they receive your message. Because what's worse than miscommunication and being misunderstood? Really nothing else. I would say miscommunication really leads to most problems in this world, because communication is a key, and it leads us into beautiful understanding and catalyzes us into creating better and better. There's always room for improvement, and how do we get to the improvement without talking about it first? So Mercury being in Libra gifts us this grace, this charm to what we're saying, this ability to speak clearly and to the people who are going to receive us. Maybe not necessarily everybody's going to hear you. And if I can speak to that, that's to say that those people have not done the work to be able to hear themselves on that level, let alone another person who needs to speak and communicate and be heard in such a way, on such a level. And this is a real issue for the times we're in, let alone the specific individuals receiving this dead air. the feedback loop needs to come back so we know that what we're saying is valid. And we do need a little bit of reassurance inside of our conversations. And so look for the friends, look for the people who are open and willing to share perspectives, because that's all what Libra's about. And with our need to express our story and what our message is as a person, with our purpose in our voice box, in our hearts, hopefully there's somebody on the other end receiving that very message. And this is also for me to tell you that if there's nobody around to listen to you, one, you are there as the individual needing to talk. Listen to yourself first and foremost. And if you don't, others will find it much more difficult to listen to you. Two, know that I'm here. This is who I'm meant to be, and I'm meant to hold space and communicate about the themes of this world, this entire world. It can be broken down and discussed, and we can approach conversation through our individual experiences about what's going on and where we're headed as individuals and a collective. So I'm here for you, friends. Don't forget it. Carrying on, we'll move on from Mercury, and we're going to talk about Venus being also in Libra. My sun sign is a Libra Scorpio cusp. I'm ruled by Venus, ruled, governed, influenced, whatever the word may be. And I wasn't planning on talking about Venus in depth, but I really do personally feel that Venus is an energy, someone who can bring us to harmony. There's an idea that Venus brings us back to our center point of our love, and the love is here, and we need to express the love where Leo resides, and our ability to express can come forward if we can allow ourselves to open into what love is, see the love, communicate the love, feel the love, share the love. Whatever you do love, it doesn't have to be a relationship in a husband, wife, or spouse kind of way, but relationships with your friends and loved ones of all kinds, people who share similar interests and who are on the same path as you. So I'm going to read a little bit about Venus, and we can understand where she lies and how the duality exists. So Venus is the planet of love and pleasure. It rules over your capacity to express affection and to enjoy beauty. In addition, Venus lends your personality allure and desirability, and tells what kind of sex appeal you possess. By looking at the position of Venus in your birth chart, you can answer such questions as: what kind of lovers do you attract? Are you flirtatious? Do you find happiness in your love affairs, or are you often disappointed? Where do your creative talents lie? Venus is a lover of the arts and beauty. She's also a symbol of the mother. So also the duality exists within the mother, soft and gentle, nurturing and kind and compassionate and supportive, and then a rage of frickin' fire when her child needs protection or something's wrong and justice needs to be served, because she's also representative of justice and the idea of the scales, right? Weighing out what is the truth and what deserves reconciliation. Carrying on, from early times, Venus in mythology has been a goddess whose dominion is love and the emotions. It was Venus who taught the arts of seduction to mortal men and women. Her power over the heart is legend. She stole the wits even of the wise. She was extremely beautiful, and flowers grew wherever she walked. The goddess was also temperamental and self-indulgent, and at times could be treacherous and spiteful. In astrology, Venus rules over love affairs, art and beauty, adornment and decoration, the social graces, affection, harmony, and friendship. The planet governs the higher emotions. Its greatest gift is the gift of happiness. It can be said that Venus makes life beautiful. And is it Venus? Is it the goddess herself who makes life beautiful? Life is beautiful as it is, and can we see the influence of the feminine where she goes? Beauty of nature and the love of it, it's this two-way street, right? We as the human can experience the world and the love for it in the world is love for us to experience. So we need to find what love is, and with Venus and Libra, all about beauty. There's just nothing but beauty that we see, and it means that we can shy away or avoid looking in ugly places, but that doesn't mean that we can't, and it doesn't mean that we won't. Darkness is actually a part of Libra, and Venus can be dark. It's not that it can't or she can't. It's just the preference goes to the side of beauty and all of what that is. So carrying on here, the influence of Venus in your chart indicates how you relate to the opposite sex, whether you are popular and make friends easily, and also what artistic leanings you have. It rules your ability to love and to share with another person, and also governs your choice of gifts, cosmetics, flowers, and art objects. Being the planet of pleasure, it points to the kinds of amusements you are drawn to and in what ways you spend your money. Venus ruling Libra. Libras are known to be more luxurious in their spending and want to have more finer items. Venus also rules Taurus, and so in that zodiac, Venus's influence is much more reserved and constructive, and gives the idea that we do want to enjoy ourselves and our sensual experience of the world. However, we're more about building and being consistent and steadfast and spending our money in more practical ways. So, when Venus is prominent in your horoscope, you are usually a delightful companion, very easy to get along with. Venus also endows its natives with an unerring eye for design and beauty, and knowledge of how to dress and present themselves appealingly. The other side of Venus's influence is that it can encourage a person to put more importance on pleasure, ease, and luxury than on self-discipline. A strong streak of narcissism and lack of willpower indicate an afflicted Venus in a chart. The planet Venus never travels far from the sun. In your horoscope, it is always either in your sun sign or in one of the two signs immediately preceding or following your sun sign. So that is to say, Venus is close to what sign you are born in for your sun sign. So for my example, I'm born in the sign of Libra. My Venus is in the sign of Sagittarius. So Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. So it's just a couple signs away, and so it makes sense to be able to relate back to your sun so closely. There's logic to these transits. We're learning. So with Venus and Libra, I'm just going to read what this book says, because they amplify. Venus and Libra, Libra and Venus, they're the same people, basically. And so right now we have a lot of this energy at an all-time high. I'm just looking for how long Venus is going to be there. Oh, friends! It was there, and then now it's in Scorpio. So we just talked about Venus a whole bunch to then understand its transition into Scorpio, which is the next sign. So we'll look into it. For the month that we've just experienced, Venus and Libra, I think a lot of us in the, at least northern hemisphere, start to find so much love for the transition into fall, the beauty of the leaves, and the beauty of art that comes from our inspiration of nature, the death and decay that can be seen as mystical, I would say, inspiring, and shows us such an illuminated experience to note the darkness, and it has its beauty. For sure, within our awareness, we can see that. So I'm not even going to read into Venus and Libra. I'm just going to jump right into with Venus and Scorpio, because I think we've got a good sense of what Venus and Libra is. And it's just all this love for love and all the forms of love and the right kinds of love, may I say. So it is a matter of speaking to those around you and for yourself, giving yourself the right amount of love so that you can love others and show up in full. So now with Venus and Scorpio, which is brand new, just as the Scorpio season entered, we have a lot of Scorpio influence right now. So with Venus and Scorpio as a person, being in love is an all-consuming experience for you. There is a profound intensity to your emotions, your sex life is passionate and demonstrative, and in a love affair, it is the sexual side of a relationship that is emphasized. So maybe you're getting a little more of that within a relationship you have, or you're creating a relationship currently and building towards this passion and intensity within your mutual felt desires. So as well, carrying on, you also put love on a spiritual plane. And maybe you didn't always do this as a person who doesn't have their Venus, natal Venus in the sign of Scorpio. Right now, this is a transit of Venus on a universal level. So wherever your Venus is, it's influenced by this level. So maybe you're recognizing that the person or people that you love, it's not enough to just have love. There has to be a dedication to the one thing that we all share, which is our consciousness. And what consciousness is needs to be discovered and experienced and shared so that we can come to understand it on a different level. And when you communicate that, there's a depth to the love that is beyond words, really. And hopefully you're looking for that and you see that and you can define it almost and recognize that it's all that matters when you're building a relationship. The superficial stuff, Venus does not care about. Venus doesn't care about the fact that maybe you have money, or maybe you have smarts, or maybe you have this going for you and you can show off in your way, but Venus doesn't care. Venus wants substance, especially right now. Right now, she's saying, what you got? What's under your skin, under the surface? Are you speaking to my soul too, or are you just trying to show off and flatter me? Because that doesn't work anymore, right? Right now, we don't care. Maybe we did care. Maybe it was fun. Maybe it gave us some attention, but it's not going to cut it. So you need, your deep need is to possess a lover wholly. We gotta play with that line there. Again, if you have Venus and Scorpio as your natural placement for your natal chart, you may have this idea of possession, and it's not necessarily healthy, but you do want to understand somebody on a whole level. And there is a natural thing that happens when you are beginning to love somebody in a real way. You want to connect and integrate on a whole level. And it's a process. It doesn't happen necessarily like immediately for it to enter into your conscious awareness, but it does have a felt sense on a level that is subconscious and not quite understood right away. So anyways, so you can imagine, and this book tells us that predictably, this leads to stormy scenes. It is not easy for anyone to deal with such possessiveness. You are very sensitive to any rebuff. You can bristle like a porcupine. And if someone does not respond to your love, you may even become vindictive. If you have the sun in Libra or Sagittarius, however, the jealous drive is lightened. So this is to say, you can have that sensation or the experience. It may exist where you're just like, well, what the heck? I gave you all my love. Or who are you to deny me? Whatever the thinking is, it can be lightened when you reframe things, when you come to understand that people are people and your version of love is specific and will be met by the person you're meant for. So with Venus and Scorpio, there's a tendency to become involved in lucrative marriages or business partnerships. You have a sweeping, compelling imagination, and many of you do highly original artistic work. So again, if you don't have your Venus in Scorpio necessarily, there's this influence where maybe you have a opening to a partnership or a business arrangement, and your imagination might be at an all-time high, literally connecting to the spiritual realm in such a way where you can translate that love and that understanding of energy, that high frequency, into art, because we are art as humans. We are living, breathing pieces of master. I shouldn't speak so backwards. We are masterpieces crafted out of the universe, and we are walking in our splendor. So once you see yourself that way, once you see your life that way and see life on a scale in that same sense, you communicate differently with those around you and find yourself looking to the depth of that person, not just what they put on as clothing or the face they show the world. You want to know them on a deeper level so that there is a whole picture, I'm trying to think of another word, a wholeness to your love. Doesn't have to be possessive, doesn't have to be too much. It can be pretty balanced. We've just learned what that is. We know what we want from knowing what we don't want, right, friends? All right, carrying on here. There's so many planets and so much to talk about with each one, so I'm trying to not go into depth forever. So let's talk about a few more here. Jupiter being in retrograde as well in the sign of Aries, another planet that is just happening with retrograde here. This was in Pisces. Sorry, let me carry on that one more time. Jupiter retrograde in Aries, and it'll be in Pisces on October 27th, still in retrograde. So we're not shifting out of the retrograde, it's quite long. Jupiter is a planet of luck and opportunity and optimism. Rules Sagittarius, which we've talked about. So Jupiter brings us our future and our idea of future, and Sagittariuses carry us forward. So they're the philosophers, the people who look at life like an adventure, and they're carrying us forward on this epic journey. They rule the thighs, and we'll talk about that more. They just have the ability, they have the energy and the capability to take you where you need to go. And so we can tune into where Sagittarius exists within our own lives by hearing where Jupiter is, and with its retrograde in Aries, I've written a note here. Individual goals. Honor your path to success. And this is slightly paused. Like I was mentioning, retrograde brings about a delay. It's as though the movement, not that it is not happening in a forward manner, but it looks as though it's happening backwards. And so this is a time to reflect, understand your path, know you are going forward despite, maybe a fork in the road or a decision needing to be made or understanding to come by. You are still going forward. There's just this understanding that your path is specific at this point in time. You mustn't let other people influence you and pull you into directions that you wouldn't choose for yourself. Because what good is that, right? Aries is the sign of self and self-interest. It is a sister sign of Libra, which is a sign of partnerships and marriages. Aries is, what do I need? What can I do for myself? How can I help myself? And from their understanding of the self, they understand how the world needs to be. When one can understand what one needs, they understand that everyone is needing their thing for themselves, things for themselves, ways for themselves. Decisions need to be made, that kind of stuff. So being conscious of this for yourself is very difficult. It requires and needs your creative ability, your creative intelligence, which we all have. And so tuning into that is so important on a general level, let alone right now, because right now we have time to do so. I don't think I wrote down when the retrograde ends for... Yeah, I didn't write it down just when the Jupiter retrograde ends, but it is some time. And so right now you can recognize that you have literally time to plan. There's no hurry, there's no worry, and you're going exactly where you're meant to, but make sure you become clearer and clearer on those steps to take you to your goal. They say, I think it was Oprah who said it, but they say that luck is created by you setting yourself up to receive the result of your actions. So you can't just be lucky and win the lottery if you didn't buy a lottery ticket, right? You actually have to put yourself in the path to receive the things. And so by putting yourself within the position to Again, I say receive. It doesn't matter what it is. For example, as an artist type, to create art, I have to have tools and things going and resources available, and maybe start on some projects and come back to it. Once I have that snowballing, it becomes easier and easier. Creation can just happen. I've set myself up to then hopefully bang out whatever needs to happen. And so this is some personal example. I'm just bringing in one, because everybody has different versions of success. And success in some level can be a universal idea. It can be very specific, of course, but success on some sense is that we are supported by the universe, taken care of on a level of need, right? We have shelter and water and food, which is a conversation and we're having concerns for, yet we know that we will always get what we need, especially when we trust and put ourselves to use in a way that sets ourselves up. What does the self need? This is something that we need to analyze. And if I may interject, I'm just speaking cosmically here. Usually I'm trying not to put in anything political or anything like that. But there is a direct message here to say we need to set ourselves up to be able to be taken care of. And that looks like farming right now. A lot of us need to find out where we can participate in the progression of taking care of the world, really, and taking care of ourselves on the first and foremost level. That baseline is necessary. So when we can recognize that what we need as an individual is also what others need, there's this beautiful balance. There's this amazing harmony that happens, because it is a fact of the matter that when you can recognize a true need for yourself, you can recognize that other selves need that. So I've rambled on with Jupiter, I think, plenty enough. Carrying on, we've got Saturn. So let's talk about Saturn a little more, because I just briefly mentioned what Saturn is. I mentioned that it's the planet that rules rules and limitations and regulations. And so it's described as the father planet, the planet that gives it to you in a sense. And with that, I think I did say plenty for it. The idea with the retrograde is that there's just this pause. So Saturn is in Aquarius. So I'll mention Saturn rules Capricorn. You can imagine father knows how to work hard, right? He knows how to go to work and be consistent, show up for the job and get the job done, and then thus see the result of his work as fruitful and being able to take care of the family, right? Himself and family. So with Saturn in Aquarius, which I'm going to pull my book out for here, there's just this beautiful humanitarian position. With the retrograde, my friends, hang on while I flip 2 pages here. Okay, wow. So quickly, Saturn in Aquarius. So, before I go too far and read Aquarius, I'm just going to quickly read the first little bit. Saturn is the planet of responsibility and symbolizes the ethic of hard work. Under its influence, a person's character is strengthened through trial and difficulty. It has been said that Saturn disciplines us until we can learn to discipline ourselves. So, if you don't do it yourself, consciousness, there are occurrences that'll come into your external world for you to learn how to discipline yourself. And may it be your body, may it be another, may it be whatever version of lesson that'll actually get through to you, because that's how the universe works, right? So, with Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, here goes what the book says. In the humanitarian sign of Aquarius, Saturn's quality of trustworthiness and self-discipline are well placed. As a Saturn Aquarian, if this is a person, you may have your Saturn in Aquarius, you have a talent for dealing with people and appealing to the masses. Many of you achieve fame in both the entertainment world and politics because of this ability. Saturn in Aquarius enhances a rational and original mind. Beautiful, right? It is time, in a sense, what this book is getting to and what I can put words into. It is time to own your individualistic nature. How you govern yourself is different than how others govern themselves. How you need to be disciplined is different than how others need to be disciplined. And it's fact of the matter. We can look into natal charts and get into this. And if you'd like to, I'm right here to talk about yours. But the whole point is it's very specific. And with that, there is this coming together. Aquariuses are the most humanitarian sign, and they really do care about where other people are at in their worlds. So to care about others is to care about yourself on such a level that you know you're doing what you need to do, and then you can go forward and doing what you can do for others. There's no skipping steps here. And Saturn will tell you, you skipped a step again. You didn't put on your own air mask before you tried putting on the air mask of another, and let me tell you, it won't work out in the end. So, Saturn in Aquarius enhances a rational and original mind, capable of learning and study. Like those with Saturn in other fixed signs of Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio, you are likely to encounter obstacles and difficulties early in life. So let's just say, like right now, we're looking at Saturn Aquarius. It's not early life necessarily, right? Wherever we are, we don't necessarily have a young age factor inside of this moment, but we can see where there is the thinking of our child or inner child in our child state. So the obstacles of being the child in our own lives, like being lighthearted and playful right now, I would say in my own world, it's very difficult having the ability to create space to have fun. It does take some caution, and it does take some thinking and some rules and some regulations. If you can't structure the fun, how can we have fun, right? And to enjoy ourselves is to be able to play within the limits, right? So that's literally Saturn's message right now. And an individual's limit is different at every level. So what you can handle, tolerate, wish, and desire is different than what I can handle, tolerate, and see for myself. So carrying on here, you like to run the show and get your own way, and you are clever about manipulating people so you can. So we're going to carry on because this, again, is about a person with Saturn in Aquarius, not necessarily the time of Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn gives you aggressiveness. Oh, I skipped a sentence. You can be obstinate and cunning at the same time as clever and manipulative. So Saturn gives you the aggressiveness to take leadership, but you know how to avoid rubbing others the wrong way. This is that two-way street. So you can stand in your knowing, be certain, and be assertive, but that doesn't mean that you tear down others. You give them the space to figure it out for themselves, because that's the human thing to do. It's not quite so kind unless someone asked you for the opinion or the perspective or the advice or recommendation. It is necessary to hold back and not give them your 2 cents. So as well, you have humor and wit, though your need for independence sometimes leads a lonely life. Natives of this Saturn position are prone to injuries to the lower legs and ankles because Aquarius rules the ankles, and I'm not able to really speak if you're having ankle issues, right? But the whole point here is saying that there is the draw from the physical to the symbolic and the metaphorical idea that if you have difficulty standing on your own 2 feet and being able to move in all directions, because that's what your ankles do, they help you move somehow in like a 360. They give you that ability to rotate, move forward, shift, lean, all of that. And so if you can't stand on your own 2 feet and handle what you need to handle and take care of what you need to take care of, you're not going to be well received. The people around you won't understand your humor maybe, and your need to be an individual will be dismissed because you actually need to be governed by other people. And so this is a very important time in the world. Saturn Aquarius with a retrograde, don't forget that, friends, with the retrograde, and I don't believe I marked down how long it's going to take us to get through this retrograde. No, I did. And I even said it in this. the retrograde did end, and so from the position of delay in taking into account what we need to take responsibility for, there is this beautiful understanding that we can do just what that is, relax on the whole thing, and not give ourselves such a hard time. I have 2 more quick notes. I'll keep it quick because they're very distant planets and they don't really have much to say. So the other one I was going to mention is Uranus. Uranus symbolizes change. I'm just going to leave that there as simply stated. Change comes in many forms and is required in many ways. So with Uranus in Taurus and in retrograde, there's this idea to return to newness, to keep focusing on what's new and embrace uncomfortable things. Taurus likes to be consistent and steadfast in what they know, and they do not like to shift or change because why would they, unless there's real reason to do so. So with the real reason to do so, it's coming up now. Uranus is telling us it's time to like it, it's time to enjoy it, and find the spiritual practices. It is a must for us to find where we are on that level. Carrying on, the next little bit here we've got is Neptune, also in retrograde, and Neptune is in Pisces, which I believe is its native sign. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But Neptune in Pisces, in retrograde, quickly on the Uranus thing, also in retrograde, there's no hurry. Relax, take your time in finding what works for you. And with Neptune in Pisces, dreams are right in front of us. With our dreams come our response. So there's no need to rush off towards our dreams and forget what it means to get there. We do have to take the process of getting there, right? There's so much to say about the process and that there is no hurry to the end result. The destination is not the point of our journey, it's the journey itself. So there's one more thing here. If you know what Chiron is in Aries, and it's also in retrograde, and it's up until December, and then it'll go direct. Focus on yourself is the main message there. It's in retrograde, so there's this lovely pause and time to do so. And in this time, in this world, and all the craziness going on, you really cannot take responsibility on for other people. However, you can be accountable for yourself and share space with others inside of whatever they're going through, knowing that that's not your responsibility, but you can be present for it as long as you're being present for yourself. So friends, I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening, and I hope to discuss with you further as we discover together just what's going on. Peace.